Good morning. I'm Kristen Balasia, Head of Automotive Advisory at IHS Markit, and welcome to this edition of Fuel for Thought. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Amber Daniel, Director of Retail Product Strategy for Polk Automotive Marketing Solutions, and Giancarlo Montenegro. Giancarlo is one of automotive's longstanding leaders in the paid social advertising realm, who now currently presides as Director of Social at Reunion Marketing. In addition to his extensive catalog of work in automotive, Giancarlo came to Reunion after taking a 2-year hiatus from the industry to oversee global paid social programs in New York City for brands including TD Ameritrade, Nestle, and IBM at the renowned advertising firm Group M. His underlying mission is to drive real-world results through proven yet innovative digital means to dealers and SMBs alike. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Kristen. Really appreciate you having us on.
Thank you, Kristen.
So excited to talk to you both today. I think we'll have a pretty interesting discussion here. We're going to be talking about the changing consumer experience. And a lot of people are talking about that these days with COVID and increased digitization. But more specifically, we're going to be talking about how that's driving dealer actions and ad spend and how to best engage consumers in a tight market. For example, in one recent IHS Markit study, convenience was cited as the primary reason for purchasing a vehicle online, as reported by almost 2/3 of US consumers surveyed. So even over safety or health concerns, convenience was really the primary driver. A further important note, and important for the industry to understand, millennials were 2 times more likely to buy a car online. So this really signals a growing digital engagement over the coming years, and in what you would say is an attractive consumer segment that dealers and brands will really want to engage with. So Giancarlo, let's start with you. With this changing consumer behavior for a variety of market conditions, why is it so important to have a strong digital strategy, and what are some of the key considerations?
Well, I don't think that it would be nearly as important if you could find studies that show that millennials and even generation younger are buying via radio and print to the degree that our generation and generations before us were. So it's all about we know that the attention economy is alive and well, and we need to make sure that we are placing our ad dollars where the eyeballs are. And at the end of the day, those eyeballs are on screens, be it on social, paid search, programmatic. It's simply a direct reflection of the state of the market, both at, when you look at it from a macro and micro lens. It's just the absolute truth of it.
Absolutely. And Amber, what's the potential impact of, I know you do a lot of work in this space, so what's the potential impact of having the right digital marketing strategy or not having the right strategy? And what do you see as some of the key components that dealers and brands should be considering?
Great question. The impact is significant. As you know, across the industry, dealers are spending millions of dollars each year investing in agencies like Reunion Marketing and Giancarlo to spend their ad dollars effectively in a way that, and what I mean by effective is a dealer's main goal is to sell more vehicles, right? Or generate more service business in their service drive. So it's such a critical component to the overall life cycle and healthy health of the dealership in general. So from a just overall impact, I think there's a couple things that I'd like to point out. The first is really focused on measurement, right? So as Giancarlo mentioned, key strategies that are important. We really also want to tell the story of why and how they are important. So through measurement, we have the ability to do that. So we can justify and prove success of Giancarlo's advertising campaigns, and not just through key vanity metrics that we've used in the past. And what I mean by vanity metrics are some of the traditional acronyms that you hear thrown out are VDP views. So that's a vehicle detail view. Frequency, right? How often are customers seeing my ad as a dealer? Am I getting an appropriate share of voice, right? How much money am I spending in the marketplace, and have I presented ads to enough consumers to justify my ad spend? So instead of talking about some of these vanity metrics, we should be using these vanity metrics to drive execution strategies. So this is really where Reunion comes in to play, and Giancarlo's expertise is so valuable, is using those vanity metrics to drive his ad strategy execution. And moving away from those vanity metrics, the things that we want to think about are the same questions that dealers are asking themselves today. It's, am I selling cars? Is the money I'm spending on my advertising producing the results that I'm expecting? And those are the things that we should be thinking about that have very significant impacts in the business. So as you know, we have the ability to report through our measurement solutions here at Polk Automotive Solutions. And some of the things that we're tracking are, what is the cost per vehicle sold? How much does it actually cost a dealer to sell a vehicle with all the advertising they have in the marketplace? And that doesn't just go for one channel, that is Facebook or Google. We're looking at the cumulative ad spend across the dealer's overall digital strategy. And just a stat that I wanted to throw out, and this is an NADA stat, that on average, it costs a dealer somewhere in the neighborhood of $650 per vehicle sold. So you do the math, 100 times 650, is that an efficient way to invest your dollars? Good question. I think we're, now moving into a time where we can start to tell that story of what's successful and what isn't. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. So what do you say, maybe a good segue, what do you say to people that talk about the current tight inventory situation? Is now a time they shouldn't be spending on this, or why would you tell someone they should continue to spend on this when inventory is tight?
Certainly a great question, and I'll jump in and answer first, and then Giancarlo, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well, because you are spending more time directly with dealers and hearing some of their feedback. Our perspective at IHS and Polk, just in general, and frankly, just having been in the business for so long, is you can't really ever take your foot off the gas as a dealer, can you? Do you really want to stop putting your message in front of customers today so they forget about you tomorrow? It just doesn't seem like a very solid decision-making process to set up my future for success. So no, I don't think so. I think we have an opportunity with the inventory crisis to help dealers grow market share with a substantial conquest strategy. And this allows us to leverage, the inventory that is available and help dealers grow their market share.
Yeah, I would be more than happy to add on to that. I think everything Amber laid out there is absolutely spot on. I think that what we've seen on our end with our dealers in our dealer body group is not necessarily a lifting of the foot off the gas, but a slight pivot in where we're going. Just because there is this, and not to minimize it at all, it's a severe inventory shortage on the new side, doesn't mean that there aren't places that we can focus on in the meantime. There has been a sharp increase in the volume that I'm seeing, even as a consumer, for trade-in vehicles, and even on the service side, where Reunion was actually focusing in on, and has been for a number of years. Obviously, all of these campaigns wouldn't be nearly as successful if we didn't have the powering of those in-market or ownership-based audiences that Polk provides us. So if you are putting your foot down and flooring it on the gas, and you are still trying to churn out, new vehicle sales, but you've only got 3 or 4 new vehicles on your lot, yeah, it's a bit like hitting your head against a brick wall. You're not going to have a good time. But this opportunity, which really is precisely what it has been, upon retrospect, has allowed us to really explore other avenues of profitability for the dealership. Like I said, be it either through the trade-in program or to sell to purchase vehicles from social consumers, or even once again just the always-on service side, which we know can be very profitable from a digital standpoint if executed upon correctly.
Hey, I just have to piggyback on that really quick, and actually more follow-up question for you, Giancarlo. How much of ad spend would you say has transitioned from sales into service with these inventory challenges?
That's a great question. I think prior to this, the split, and once again, try not to hold me too much to it, ballparking, is about 80-20 in favor of sales. We're seeing that skew a little bit closer to 65-35, which doesn't sound monstrous in and of itself, but when you take into account the fact that there's also been a bit of a detour on that remaining 65% on the sales side, once again, to one of those non-traditional new vehicle sales campaigns that has been dealers' bread and butter across nearly every digital platform. It's definitely resembled a pretty monumentous shift across the social landscape.
That's, from my perspective, that's a huge increase. And as we all know, dealers drive business through the service drive. So that, to me, it's the same story. We're not taking our foot off the gas. Maybe we're driving people into the dealership for different reasons. Maybe dealers are promoting their accessory business or service business. But to me, it's all kind of telling the same story, that we shouldn't forget about advertising to our customers.
Right. So keep spending, spend on the areas where you can drive business opportunities, revenue, and longer term growth and sales opportunities. And then how you do it, right? So Giancarlo, you mentioned earlier, you were like, well, exactly, consumers are, and certain types of consumers, are buying online, want to buy and shop online. So one aspect of that, Amber, maybe I'll start with you. So historically, marketers would have only had one or two channels, right? And now, everyone's talking about the omni-channel, but a lot of it's really been driven by the technology or the ad tech, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we obviously want to talk about an omni-channel approach, right? You've heard the comment around the right people at the right time on the right platform. And Giancarlo said it best earlier in the conversation when he was talking about eyes on screens. And we know that across the digital ecosystem, we see advertising dollars going from Google paid search to programmatic to Facebook advertising. Now we're seeing some more progressive dealers invest in Amazon. We're looking at traditional TV dollars transitioning into connected TV. So to me, the multi-channel or omni-channel approach is such a critical component. Sort of piggybacking on what Giancarlo said, we're also losing signals with some of the cookie deprecation that we've experienced over the last couple of years. So making sure you've got the right audience and the right message across those channels is more important than ever.
Absolutely. So maybe I'll ask you guys one more question here to wrap up. There's so much going on in the industry right now for dealers, customers, OEMs to consider: the increasing competition, decreasing attention spans, regulation, tight inventory, the uncertainties that come with COVID and how customers are going to respond and engage. So what would, maybe from each one of you, what would be your message or your recommendation in regards to the best way to target, best way to engage, and I'll say really how a dealer would drive the biggest bang for their buck, if you will?
I'm happy to go first. I think that part of that question absolutely revolves around the cookie deprecation that Amber had alluded to before, talking about how the reliability in these cookie-based and signal-based audiences have much to Amber's point, gone down in the past couple of years, with the steepest of drop-offs, at least as it pertains to social, occurring after this most recent iOS update, which I know we're all pretty sick and tired of hearing about at this point. But with that said, our ability to rely on those audiences continues to decrease. There has been no reason for anyone in the industry or anyone in digital, period, to believe that the strength of those audiences or those audience sources will increase again at any given point. So, with that said, at the end of the day, when you build campaigns, it is built all around your audience. That's who you're serving the ad to. And as we all know, in 2021, you're expected to be able to deliver hyper relevant ads to the right people. And yes, while we do rely on machine learning and these significant platforms to do a lot of the heavy lifting for us, we still have to point them in the right direction. That's where the ability to leverage signalless audiences, as it pertains to auto, be it with regards to automotive ownership, automotive in market, possibly some, credit-based or financial type audiences to really help kickstart the campaign, get those initial baseline efficiencies going, is more crucial now than it ever has been in the digital realm. So, for that, at the potential expense of sounding a little too gushy, I am extremely grateful, for the PDM, the Polk Dealer Marketing tool that we have. It has absolutely moved mountains with dealers and being able to provide them along with us, because it was a fairly cloudy time, as we all navigated this iOS update. A great deal of clarity as it pertains to not only campaign building, but efficiencies, not only as it pertains to media metrics, but also actual vehicle sales, service ROs, and any other optimized action that takes place in the dealership.
Yeah, and I would just say to piggyback on what Giancarlo just said, making sure that you have a signalless measurement solution in place to ensure success for your digital advertising strategy or your advertising strategy across the board.
Great. Well, thank you so much. We have to end it there, but Giancarlo and Amber, I want to thank you again for the interesting discussion today, and we'll be back with more Fuel for Thought next month. To opt into our newsletter that provides more information on this topic and others, visit ihsmarket.com/auto newsletter.